Welcome back to That's Some Bull with your host, Nicholas Bull. So, as you can see, we are back in a beautiful video form. Isn't it great to see this face again? Anyways, getting back to the intro, today is a bit of a special episode along with the ones I'm shooting today. So at least it is to me. Celebration, that is. So far, everyone has been great, but, this one's just going to be a bit more reflective than the others. The next two will be. So today I'll be talking to you about cheese, personalities, and experiences all mixed together to make like a 5-mix blend of cheese. The cheese was a special request from one of my roommates because we were talking about retirement and like cheesemongers and like how it'd be cool to be like a cheesemonger one day. So shout out to Nick for, just talking about that, and it kind of sparked an idea that I think will be cool to focus on for today's episode, and I hope everybody else thinks it is too. So let's get on with episode 5, What's Gouda for You? And obviously that's a bit of a cheesy title, no pun intended, but I think you'll like it. So anyways, over the past bit, I've learned a lot about people. They're easier to read than you think, in the sense of what they are and who they are like, right? A kind of like a cheese, right? The smell, the taste, the grittiness, the density, the type. You can tell what it is, right? You can tell the difference between like a sharp cheddar versus a mozzarella versus feta cheese. All of those have a different kind of, certain way to distinguish it, if you will. So back to it. An example that's kind of relevant to how someone plays a game, right? You can kind of tell what their style is like, see them out, feel them out, be like, oh yeah, I see what you're doing there. So recently I've been playing some ping pong, like every Wednesday night, me and my Archenge friends, my boys, my squad, we go to this one little place on campus and we play some ping pong, and just kind of have some fun there, right? So it's interesting because, you talk some fun before playing, right? You see what everybody's kind of saying about if they're better than you or they're not, or they're just kind of more chill about it, or if they're just say they're not that good at all, right? But it's funny, though, when you see it in action, because everybody just has something different that distinguishes them completely. So, per example, when we were playing, right? So one of my friends, he's pretty chill. He's not like how do I say this? He's not a very like angry guy, or he doesn't really get mad. He's just kind of like, he goes with the flow, let's say. But the way he plays kind of almost mirrors the way he acts in real life, how he's very chill. He's very defensive, in terms of playing. He can turn up the heat when he wants to, but for the most part, keeps it pretty tame, right? So it's cool because it's a mirror of his personality. Another friend, he's pretty, he's also kind of chill with it too, but the way he plays a bit more spinny and a little bit more like fluid, a little bit more out there, if you will, right? And that kind of also shows his personality. And then another one, he's a bit more, he kind of has more downward force shots, reliance on spin deflection, and like won't back down from a challenge, because like we played like a bajillion matches. I did win the bulk of them, but I will say he's a pretty damn good player, and I'm sure he could beat me, and he did beat me a few times or one time. But he's definitely a good player, and I'll tell you all their names. So obviously the first one would be Tristan. So Tristan, which I'm hoping to have on the podcast soon, which he obviously will. Come on now, he listens to these. Daniel, he's already been on there, episode 2. And then Dennis, who has been talking about. So we've decided we're gonna probably do an episode soon. So we'll see. And also some other ideas that I'll talk about in another podcast. But like I said, they all have their own different play style, right? And with that, they all kind of have how do I say this? Because they all have a different play style, it changes stuff, right? So because everybody takes something and makes it their own. Like in this case, they found what fits and works for them in the game, like how they go about doing their serves, their returns, their hits across, how you just kind of like manage to analyze the game, right? And I'm not just saying this for ping pong. You could take it into play for anything. It could be for playing cards. It could be playing video games. It could be just even how, like, you play sports, I guess, like, again, yeah, more sports, but even in general, just how you kind of carry yourself, it kind of transverses through these different fields, which is very interesting because you can kind of, like, take a piece of their game and put it to a personality, like, match, right? So, let's talk about this, though. So, while I could just tell you what my play style is, because I just told you about all theirs, I think it would be cool, since I've already talked about it, to involve cheese a bit more, right? So let's talk about this. Let's go into this. There's a website I'm going to link into the video and everything that's going to be about what personality of cheese you are. So this is where it kind of ties in the episode. So every player, I'm going to tie in a type of cheese, kind of give you a little feel of what the cheese is, and then move on to the next one. And then we're going to move on to me, but kind of spread the cheese out a little bit more, if you get what I mean. So let's get into it. So first of all, Tristan, I'd say he's like Havarti. Smooth in interactions, the peacekeeper in the group. So, just because the way he plays, the way he acts. We were talking about he's not a big, argument guy. He doesn't really get into arguments. It's more like calm discussions. He says there's no need to yell, which I do agree. But sometimes there is a need. Not every time, though. But, there are certain times to get your point across. But I do agree with him for the most part. You should keep it tame. Second, Pepper Jack, I'd say, is like Daniel, episode 2, has a spicy side. Enjoying adventures and unexpected twists. He's always down for the ride, if you know what I mean. Because we were talking, actually, and I was talking about just, like, some fun things to do or whatever. Or, I don't know. I don't remember what we were talking about in the conversation exactly, but I was saying, like, just, like, some crazy stuff. And he's like, listen, if you feel comfortable doing it, I'm sure I could handle it. And I'm like, that's true. So, or he thinks that he would even have fun, too, if I think something fun. So there's that for you. And then the third one, Dennis, I'd say is like Cambazola. So he's, I don't know what kind of cheese that is, but I'd say the description fits pretty well. So he's a blend of traditional and adventurous. He's a very adventurous guy. Like, I remember last year Tristan and Daniel, they're wild guys. They like to do some crazy stuff like flips and stuff, and like they were getting us to do some like flips off like the diving board and like the school pool, jumping up from like crazy heights into it. Went to a trampoline park and making us doing backflips and front flips. So they're doing that. But Dennis kind of, he takes it and he's like, I'll take the challenge, which I admire about him, that he'll always step up to the plate, even if he's, I'm not going to say failed, but like that he's let's say just it didn't work out the first time, he'll keep going until it works, which I think is a good quality. So now that you've heard about how they play and how they're kind of are in terms of my eyes and view of like the cheese personalities, I mean, I could go this whole podcast being like, this person's this cheese, this person's that cheese, right? But, there's too many cheeses, too many people I could name. So let's just go with this, shall we? So let's start off with my play style. But to understand how I play, I think you got to dive into some stories that kind of acknowledge how I play. So starting off with the first cheese and story, being Swiss, okay? So you're open-minded, finding beauty in imperfections. So here, I'm going to tell you a story about when I was a kid. So I think I was about three or two or whatever, and so we had a hamster, okay? And my brother named it Springer because I guess it was after this book, or like a dragon in a book. And because of that, right, so we had the hamster for a bit, and it, what's it called again? It would always like get out of its cage or like bite my mom and brother or whatever, and that kind of thing, right? So eventually we were like, well, not we, but more so like my parents and family were like, yeah, we should just take it back or whatever, just because it was causing a little bit too much trouble, right? But then we brought it back, and then eventually got a dog shortly after. So the dog also was named Springer by my brother. And me being little, and I was getting into Pokemon at the time. I played I think it was Pokemon Platinum or whatever. evolution is a common thing in Pokemon, right? You go from the first stage to the second stage, like from Charmander to Charmeleon to Charizard, right? Just as the most known, I'd say. Anyways, I had my mind kind of on that when I was younger. So, in that case, I went to my grandparents' house one day, my Nona and my grandpa, as I call them. And I think it was a family gathering, so a bunch of the grandparents and us were there or whatever. And I was like, runs in the door, and I'm like, hey, Nona. And she's like, what? And I was like, the hamster turned into a dog. And everybody was laughing, like, just because of, like, how obscene that was to hear. And it is true that, but, like, you got to understand at the time that I'm a little kid and just kind of, you think a little differently. I remember some things I thought when I was a kid that obviously do not follow laws of physics, number, or any kind of sense. So in that case, that's why this one's kind of open-minded thinking and finding the fun in some weird thought processes. So next cheese being the goat cheese. Okay, not the greatest of all time cheese, but goat cheese from goat milk. Being independent, bold, and not afraid to stand out. So this takes me back to during my karate time, which I still do karate from time to time, but more so when I was like almost in the fire, we'll say. So it was a little bit before when I was going to start doing my black belt training, or just like during. And I go to these like, 1 p.m. classes on Saturdays with my to go like fight with a bunch of the other kids and adults that are testing for their black belts, where we would face against these other adults or whatever that were older or whatever, and they would just take the class. But they'd obviously go a bit easier on us just because, like, we're training, but still give us a good fight. So I'd go to those, right? Now, one time in particular, so I was fighting against my sensei because eventually in the test I would have to fight against him, right? So this one talks about, so we'll get into it. So I was fighting my sensei and my dad was watching or whatever, and the one thing that you got to do when you're fighting is always keep your hands up, right? You got to keep your hands up so then you can block, parry, counterattack, a bunch of different things to use in a sparring fight. And this one, you'd have headgear, you have gloves, and then I don't know if we had shin pads, but pretty much, yeah, we had shin pads at the time. So, like, I kept on dropping them because I was a bit tired because it was a pretty long class or whatever. And my sensei was like, Nick, you got to keep your hands up, right? And I'm like, okay, like, I'm trying to keep my hands up. Like, like when you're in that kind of a situation, you're like just trying to keep them up. But like at the same time, like sometimes your mind differs from what your body does, right? So then I dropped him. And then my sensei threw a kick right in the stomach. I went down. And, it wasn't like a super hard kick, but it was a good enough one to take, a little bit of wind out of you and put you on the ground. I remember my dad was watching. He was like, what the heck is he doing? What the heck is my sensei doing? And then I got up, like, after a little bit of time. But I was shocked, to say the least, that I got kicked like that. And then he's like, you got to keep your hands up or else I'm going to hit you. And that's what's going to happen during the test, right? So then anyways, I keep going. And then I put my hands down again. And then, boom, kicked again. And then my dad's like, I'm going to, like, do something. But at the same time, like, my sensei was trying to teach me a lesson, keep your hands up because then it won't get you kicked in the stomach, which obviously helped me during the test because I did keep my hands up. But it was a good lesson to see that, you always have to get up once you get knocked down again. I know it's like a thing that everybody repeats or whatever. And I got to say, my sensei taught me a lot of valuable stuff that I've used to this day and how I live my life, which we'll talk about a little bit later on in another episode. But from then, that also kind of goes to a different story as well. It ties to another one. Because of that, I'd always get my look in my eyes, which are known as the animal eyes, which basically is just an intimidation factor. Even though that I was small, you need to show that you're mighty in a way, right? So during the tests, one of the tests when it was I think it was the sparring test or even the final or whatever, I would, like, I do it to, like, not the other students or whatever, but whenever I was fighting, like, my sensei or whatever, I'd always put on that kind of facade or that eyes to kind of make them not think that like I mean business, but to show them. So it also is being bold and not afraid to stand out in a certain way, right? So I think it's a good story to tell. Now, moving on, we have ricotta, okay? You have a soft side, valuing the gentleness and kindness in people or whatever, right? So this one's just kind of a not crazy story, but, hold on. Okay, yeah. Anyway, so ricotta has soft side. So this story just kind of takes me back to when I was on the soccer team in elementary school, like a brief period of time or whatever, but it's just a story that I remember it was good to kind of see, and like it also shows that the coaches, I mean, not all elementary school teachers are the best. They're not like the rep coaches, or they're not like anything like that, but they take not just your skill but also some other things to affect. So we were playing in this tournament or whatever, and it was like between games or whatever, everyone was having a snack that somebody brought, right? And it was like orange slices. The thing about it, though, is everybody was taking those orange slices, dropping them on the ground. And like the thing is yeah, you could, it will decompose in a certain amount of time, but you're like people are standing around that area and stuff like that. So you don't want to, do that. So this isn't more so about me, but it's more so about just kind of, like how like a teacher kind of, was that, how do I say this? That kind of valuing the gentleness and kindness in people that I also picked up those orange slices and like put them in the garbage or whatever. But, short story, just kind of explain that, to see the genuine, kindness thing. And then another one tying to this, I guess, is that I love giving gifts. I'm not one that like likes to get gifts a lot because, how do I say this? I used to be, and trust me, I still am with certain things. I'm like, oh yeah, I need this, or I want that, or this kind of thing. But getting a gift versus giving one is completely different. Like when I was a kid, I was like, I don't see that. Like I don't see how that's possible. But it's true when you give someone something, and it kind of, you either get a text back like that's like really enthusiastic or thanking you or whatever, or you see their like genuine reaction or like smile or whatever. It just brightens my day. Like some days I'll just have like a meh day or a crappy day, and then kind of do something like that, obviously like during certain times of the year, and do something like that. Like one year I'll say it was Christmas time, and I think I wasn't in my first year of university yet, but my friends were. And I was working at that time, or I was in 12B or whatever. So when that was happening, I was like, well, there's a few friends I want to get like just a gift for or whatever, just cause to surprise them or whatever. So I even what's it called again? I wrapped the gifts or whatever, and my mom helped me not sneak in their house when there was a locked or like when they're away, but like during like the day or whatever, we go and visit them or whatever. And I would sneak the gifts under the tree. And it was funny because my one friend, he told me like that Christmas morning that it said from Santa on there or whatever. And he's looking at his parents like, did you get me this or whatever? And they're like, we didn't get you this. And he looks at his brother and he's like, no. And then like, he was so confused. And then eventually I was like, yeah, I got it. And just to be like that, because if not, he probably would have believed there was a real Santa Claus. But it's just another thing just to kind of do that. So that's ricotta. Next up, Monterey Jack. So Monterey Jack is kind of describes as versatility is your middle name, adapting to change effortlessly. Now I could kind of tie this in because I've gone from like a bunch of different things, right? Like everybody in life goes from elementary school to high school, and then from there they could go to university, college, trades, or whatever, and then there's other things they do, like your first job experience, which I mean all kind of fits in that threshold. But I could even throw up there like karate, I could throw up there tree planting, I could throw up a bunch of different things there. I shouldn't say throw up, I should say present, just because that sounds bad. But anyways, so in this case, it was just kind of adapting on the spot, kind of, you had to go with the flow and kind of make not your own rules, but just know that. So back kind of during my prime time of karate, I was I guess like a part-time sensei or like a helper, if you want to say, but they called me a sensei, so I'll take it. It was one day during the winter, so I was helping teach a class, and I think there was a main sensei or whatever, and either one of them wasn't going to be in until later, and then the other one was on his way or whatever. But what happened is I guess it was like either traffic or some snow happened. So the main sensei was going to be a little late to class or whatever. So I don't know. It could have been the whole class. It could have been just like 5 minutes or something. So then I forgot who it was, but someone was like, listen, you got to step up and you got to like be the head instructor for a bit. And I was like, oh, crap. But like the thing is to prepare me for that, they have these like leadership classes at my dojo. So like we would go attend those like every, I think it was every like first Friday night or something like that. We'd always go there and they'd do a bunch of like teaching kind of things, like praise, correct, praise, stuff like that. But that kind of leads in the story. So like, I had to start off the class, like bow everyone in, do some like running exercises. And then I think I got to a part where I had to like, put some kids into groups and then split off with my other helper and center I was working with, helper sensei I was working with, and then go from there, right? And then eventually the sensei came in and then we're head sensei. So, it really, certain things can put you on the spot like that. And you got to learn to be like, okay, take charge. I guess that could also kind of be like standing out, being bold, like a leader or whatever. But that's in that case. So next, raclette. Okay. So this one, you're social and love bringing people together. So I do like to get the boys together or a bunch of people together as much as I can just to kind of go out and do stuff, like big movie guy. What's it called? One of my favorite movie franchises. Not per se in terms of quality, but just something that is like Fast and Furious. And like the thing about it is that they always get together at the end of the day and they have the barbecue and like the family talk or whatever. But I feel like that kind of is how I feel with my friends and like want to have that kind of connection. Not in terms of like we're driving through buildings, we're breaking down. I don't know, like historical buildings. We're flying into space in cars, but just the more grounded level stuff, right? And that's kind of what we have. But that, go out and eat, hangouts, like go play some sports time to time, go grab coffees, whatever, that kind of stuff, right? But one thing I will say that I did was on a very special Halloween night. So this was the Halloween of grade 11, okay? So I think it was like 16 or something, yeah. And anyways, the thing about when you're in grade 11 is you're kind of that weird transitional phase, right? Between, you're kind of like a kid and going out and trick-or-treating versus when you're getting older, you go to like a Halloween parties and dress up and stuff like that still. So the thing is, we weren't old enough to drink. Legally, which we still didn't. But what's it called again? Which we didn't drink because it was illegal at that time. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was trying to straighten out. But anyways, so because you're in between that phase, there's those like weird Halloween parties you go to where people just kind of have like that. They put out the snacks, they watch some movies. A movie night would have been cool, but you'd have that any night. So I was like, okay, well, I want to do something special for one of the Halloween. So I was like, I'm going to see who's all available on Halloween night, who's not going to parties or whatever. And I managed to get like, I think 12 of my guys or whatever. And I was like, okay, we're going to do something different this year. So it took a little bit of research in that, but I managed to put together a Halloween amazing race, which turned out it wasn't the best, but I'd say for what it was a pretty damn good experience for being the host. And then also I think a lot of the players or challengers or whatever you want to call them had a fun time because they even randomized the teams. What else? I made cool Halloween challenges. I asked a bunch of the neighbors to kind of pitch in. So, I kind of got this map route out for like the whole challenge or whatever. So you know what? It was a pretty good pretty good thing, and I think it worked because it was just something different that like we haven't done in a long time or whatever. And then afterwards we played some like poker or whatever, and like watched some movies or whatever. So it worked out anyways in terms of being a fun night. But no, and then I even did like a little teaser trailer for it or whatever. That will not get released on this podcast whatsoever because it was something, that's for sure, and all of my other friends can agree to that. So the only way we're doing that is like somehow if we pass, I don't know, like 100 subscribers, maybe like 100 likes on all of the episodes, not all of the episodes, but like a pretty good high amount or whatever, like something you could set the bar to. Then maybe I'll release it, but you'll have to hold a candle to that. But so that's one of the other stories. So next, Katja. Okay, so assertive and often the life of the party. I'm not usually the life of the party. Okay, when I walk in a room, I could either be a lot more like funny and this and that with you, or I might be silent, just dead in the corner or whatever. It just depends on my mood, but also because of what's called again. If there's somebody already to fill that void, there's no point of being like the second in line, if you get what I mean. So this kind of talks about the bold beginnings of tree planting, which I've talked about many times, but this kind of just goes to say, during the tree planting, other than, of course, going out there doing the work and all that kind of stuff, there was a lot of socializing, right? So between my 6-pack and a bunch of the other different crews or whatever, right? But I owe it to all of them at the camp, of like that really broke my shell in terms of speaking out loud and being a bit more vocal and trying different things, because really the atmosphere there was just really great. Like, everybody on camp was so nice, and could pretty much have a conversation with anyone. It would be fun or interesting in some bit, right? So I remember even before I left, one of the people there was like, thank you for like coming or whatever, and how you were like basically like almost like a community like glue, or like somebody that would talk to everybody at camp and do that kind of thing. Because sometimes you could just go there, do the work, and then chat for a bit, kind of be a bit more dry about the chats. But I think everybody there that I've talked to, we all had some great chats, whether it be humorous, on a bit more emotional or deep stuff, playing some games like euchre or Dutch Blitz, which I need to get a set of that, because Dutch Blitz is really fun. And then all the different gatherings we had, like sitting around the fire, the meals and stuff. But no, that place really shed some light into this guy's, I guess, confidence. I've always been confident, but in terms of that kind of thing, still getting there, but this helped for sure. Now, finally, to sum everything up in terms of, all of the different cheeses or whatever to bring together, involves a story about, again, little Nicholas. So this is probably when I was 2 or 3. So I was big into Thomas the Train, okay? Big Thomas the Train guy. Watched the episodes, had some trains or whatever, and even, I think it was for Christmas or something like that, my one grandpa, he was a big, what's it called again? Craftsman, I guess, or he was good with his hands. He'd know how to do some pretty cool stuff, like, but anyways, so he, the one Christmas, I guess, because he knew me and my brother liked the trains, or Thomas the Train, he decided, I'll make this Thomas the Train engine table. So he made this whole table themed around like Thomas, and he like hand painted it, built it, created like drawers and all this, and like it was crazy or whatever, right? In terms of like what he put on there, wildlife and stuff. Like obviously a bit more cartoonish and kiddie, because like we're only like 2 or 3, but we still have it in our house, and definitely for the next generation I'll have to use to keep that legacy going. But I was big into the trains and stuff. So I remember watching the show, and it was like a wintry episode, and it was kind of a bit more, what's it called again? A bit more like, snowy, wintry, and I think it was even around Christmas time, a little bit after or whatever, and I think I was, 3 or 4, at home. I think someone was like babysitting me, or like I was just like upstairs doing something, and they were kind of just like downstairs like cleaning some dishes, just because I was playing or whatever. Anyways, so while that was going on, I was like, the table doesn't have any snow on it. And in terms of that, I was like, you know what? We should do, there should be some snow on here or whatever. So I don't know what was going through my mind, but I was like, I got to find something that looks like snow. So I go throughout the house, just kind of looking for things in cupboards or whatever. But I do remember one thing that's powdery like snow, white, and, could obviously look like snow piled up around trains or whatever. that being baby powder. And so I take the baby powder, go to the table, and I'm like, all right, let's make it wintertime. Start raining down baby powder all over the table and, creating this snowy atmosphere, snowsphere, whatever you want to call it. And let me tell you, it was pretty cool, being to play with trains on fake snow. So I remember my parents got home from work, or they were around, and then they smelled like baby powder. And I was like, why does the house smell like baby powder? And they came upstairs and saw that I put all this like baby powder out on the table or whatever. And, some people would be a bit mad if they see their kid just like kind of make a mess or whatever. But it was just the fact of like what I was trying to do, because they're like, what did you do with it? And I was like, well, I put it down like it was snow or whatever. Or I said like I wanted to make it snowy. And they were just laughing at it. And I mean, even when we moved the table or whatever, they vacuumed it off or whatever. But my mom, she was moving it like not a few short years ago, but a while ago, and she even still found like baby powder in like certain cracks or whatever. And I think that story alone kind of, along with some of the other stories I've told, kind of brings together my personality in terms of what cheese I am, but also in terms of just my creativity, because I'd say that story does make a lot of my ideas and stuff make sense. So anyways, in terms of what cheese I would be, I've never eaten this cheese, but Limburger. You're not afraid of strong impressions and a lasting impact on people, which all of these stories I'd say would kind of tie to that in some way and create this, different kind of personality. And in terms of like ping pong terms, because obviously I talked about that earlier on in the episode, I start with a dynamic serve. So I don't know if the video is running. I hope it is. But basically put my hand out like this, and then instead of starting my hand like, a usual kind of serve or whatever, we play illegal. We don't throw it up 6 inches or whatever, because that's not fun. Anyways, so put it out like this, and then I reverse grip my my ping pong paddle so it's behind my back, and then I twist it and then spin it and have like a front spin on it. And also, I'm very adaptive with my play style. Like I try to adapt to how others are playing against me and knowing what's better on them, what won't work. Also, I use intimidation tactics. Obviously, I could do my my stare down, but one other thing that I've been using lately is my headbands, which I put on, and it almost represents me going into a different state of power, we'll say, or a different state of intimidation. And yeah, again, kind of bring the heat in ways you wouldn't expect for the game. So I don't know if I'll wrap it here, but I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can kind of talk about in this episode, really, in terms of that. But no, that's just kind of wanted to get it across. But I will say, go take a look at the website I have linked in the video. See, obviously, what kind of cheese kind of matches your personality or whatever. Or if you see me around, be like, what kind of cheese am I? And I'll be like, well, I don't know off the top of my head. I got to read the thing first. But but everybody has different personalities. Where they come from in that, we'll be coming soon in another episode. But it's good to kind of resemble other things. It could be a wide variety of foods. It could be sports. It could be any kind of media you could relate to a person's personality. But it was just interesting to hear cheese, and I was like, oh, what could I do with cheese? Now you know what I did with cheese. So, I think that's it for the episode here. So that is episode 5. That's Gouda for you, or Gouda for you. And I hope to see you in the next one, and hopefully this video worked, just because I'm shooting off my phone today. Had to clear off a crap ton of space just to load this on here. What else? Yeah, that's... And I'll tell you a little bit about the next episode. I don't remember exactly what I called it, but it's something about like what lies upon the road, or what lies upon the road, or so I don't know, something about a road and what's next, because I will be talking about some ideas about where the podcast is going and a few other things about that. So yeah, stay tuned, because there's a lot of cool ideas. So obviously they won't be implemented super soon, but eventually they will. So that's just some bull for you today, and thank you very much for listening. See ya.